All right then, on Nitro Nights, our guest today is the one and only Mr. Danny Engels, a former sim racing veteran, and now he's the G2 head of esports operator, part of Red Bull. The list goes on. Danny, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Tom.
It's a pleasure to have you here. I've got to just ask, as I do for every guest, I love the setup in your salmony pink room. Where are you right now?
I mean, in times like these with Corona, this is my home office, so to say. Having all my old jerseys in the background, the badges that I get when going to events. So this is a proper, not only man cave, of course, because I also have the play seat right next to me, but my home office.
Okay, and I see the fridges in the background, some nice
Of
jerseys, some tops are in
course.
the background. Well, welcome to my lounge. This is where Nitro Nights happens at the moment. So listen, how are you finding it at the moment as, you know, running the operations at the Esports Man for G2? What's it like at the moment? Just give us a flavor of what's been going on.
Yeah, it's a busy life. I think esports overall is a busy life anyways. I'm actually honored to be in this position because obviously I have my history in sim racing, which we will surely talk about. But working alongside one of the best esports athletes that there are with our League of Legends team or even Counter-Strike team, Rainbow Six, Rocket League, is not only busy, but such an honor to be around these big athletes. And then the whole business side of esports just makes so much fun.
Yeah. And listen, I was going to say it earlier, but if you play your cards right, Danny, listen, this is some Nitro Nights merch. So, you know, we could trade off. Listen, Danny, it's great to have you for this time. And we all know it's a busy period in the world of esports. But I wanted to ask you really, let's go back in time a little bit, a blast from the past. I know that it's coming up to the anniversary for you, 13 years on from this incredible win. But how do you think? Well, let's take us back then. How did you get
All right.
into becoming a pro gamer?
Um, I think the best way to explain this is by saying I was a diehard gamer all around. Like I started playing with Super Nintendo, PlayStation, you name it. I had everything at home. Just a gamer after all. That's also why I was always interested in just games and not really too much about the motorsport side of things. Like I was, of course, following Formula One because it was the time when I grew up with Michael Schumacher, of course. So you're naturally into motorsports as well, of course, but never really had the interest of going into real life racing. So I was always gamer. Found Counter-Strike at some point with my hockey friends. Through Counter-Strike, I found out about esports, that there are tournaments. And one of the highest German leagues back in the days had Live for Speed in the highest esports tournament series. And that caught my attention because it was also shown on TV's channel called Giga by a former manager of mine, actually, Vikos, who presented the demo of the game, and I just downloaded it, gave it a go because it was so easy to play with keyboard and mouse, actually. It made so much fun, and I had this competitive drive that I really wanted to go into tournaments that were happening, and all of a sudden I made my way up into the Pro Series, and everything happened from there, I guess.
Yeah. So when did that love for racing games begin for you? And what was that? So that was there any other titles that you were playing?
At that time, not really. I mean, obviously, we always had fun with Super Mario Kart or any casual games that we all play, I guess. But really, hardcore sim racing, it was Live for Speed that really caught my eye. And it was also only because I saw it on this TV channel. I would probably have never found it myself differently. And it was free to play. It was so easy to pick up. It made fun straight off the bat. And it just caught my competitive drive in the end.
Okay, your competitive drive. So okay, so then at this point, I'm leading towards as all gamers love to know is how did you then take it professionally? How did you start winning a car? How did you start these tournaments?
Yeah, as I said, like this ESL Pro Series was the first big thing on my ladder, so to say. So I qualified for that one, and at the same time, we had the so-called Inter Racing Tour happening in Germany, which was a year-long competition where you actually were only able to qualify on offline events. And I literally traveled to, I think, 12 or 13 events all across Germany to set my best qualifying time, and then was lucky enough to qualify.
Yeah, Danny, is that how you traveled? Because it doesn't look that comfortable. Is that the way you traveled? At least you had your Deutschland flag with you, your German flag.
Yeah, of course. I mean, don't you do it like that?
I'm always have a UK flag on me. Great.
Fair enough.
No. Yeah, so you started traveling for gigs for the competitions, but and there you are. Like we've got these setups are amazing. How much did it
Yeah.
compare nowadays to back then?
That's tough to say. I mean, the games themselves are probably the big game changer. They have developed so much, and of course also the equipment. I mean, I still believe in the Logitech G25, G27, G29 line as a best
Mm,
entry level that there still is. Um, Even nowadays, like even if we used this 15 years ago, it's such a good piece of hardware. But obviously with the direct drive and everything else going around, that has been an enormous development, of course. So it's not really comparable,
yeah.
but it was after all the principle of racing against each other, and that's what I did back in the days for 5 years. And you see me there in the SK Gaming outfit. So I did it for 5 years for a famous club called SK Gaming.
Yeah, the happiness on your face in the middle and on the back screen as well. It's like the double happiness of Danny Engels, which I love. You know, that kind of I've achieved something. That was the Intel Racing Tour, was it?
That was actually Germany's Best Gamer. It was hosted together with the Intel
Okay.
Extreme Masters, which is still a huge tournament in esports, actually. And maybe I'm relieved because I won this tournament, but maybe I was even more relieved because I won a Need for Speed tournament. Shame on me.
Oh,
But I
yeah.
guess we can also come to that later.
And in terms of the money back then, was ever that a draw for you? Like if I pick up a
Yeah.
game, because you do say I said at the top of the show that you're a self-proclaimed Germany's best gamer. Was that the kind of you wanted to prove yourself? Was the money and interest level for you? Give us a feeling of or flavor of that, Danny.
I mean, in the beginning, it was definitely just a competitive drive, like competing against each other, being the best. That was something that really caught me because I was always coming out of sports world. I played football in the beginning, then changed to ice hockey, and esports. That's the nature of esports, I guess, that you are just competing against each other worldwide and try to be the best in the end. So that was the beginning. But obviously, at some point, you invest so much time into this, and you can see it nowadays with the pros that we have as well. You invest so much that there must be some return of investment, right? And
Mm,
it surely played a huge role to win prize money, and prize money was relatively great back then. Like especially, you see the BMW there. That's the car that I won. That was a huge game changer in my career, not only PR wise, but
yeah.
also towards my family. Because I mean, think back 13 years ago, esports wasn't that established, right? Um, People just thought you were wasting your time on the PC, which is completely different nowadays. People understand what esports is actually about. So you always had to justify why you're investing so much time into something that seemed so useless for outsiders. And then there was this
Yeah.
one day where I brought home this car in front of our house, and I think that was the moment in time where everyone understood, okay, there's more than just playing games.
Yeah. Oh, what that? Oh, that's my brand new car. I won it by Esports. See you later, guys. That must
Exactly
have
like
been a
that.
nice feeling, though. A nice feeling to be able to see a material gain from it, not just the competitive side of winning, but actually to be able to say, I could, I can, I can make a living from this.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Okay. And obviously, more pictures of you. This is when you won that competition. You had to be in an actual car. That was your rig. What was that like? Kind of quite an exciting difference. It'd never been done before.
Yeah, I mean, just think back. This is 13, literally 13 years ago on this day. And we had tournaments like
Wow.
this with Formula One chassis that you had to drive in. They even did a replica BMW Formula One steering wheel as well in that one. Only for this competition, we had Sebastian Vettel actually there around as well. Nick Heidfeld was obviously huge back in the days as well. This was a big esports tournament for sim racing. And this is what many people
Yeah.
nowadays don't even know, that we had such a huge history in sim racing as well.
Yeah, and obviously you mentioned Sebastian Vettel. I would love to see the video. I've seen it so many times on your Twitter. And actually, do you know what? We'll just watch it now. Talk us through this because not only and obviously you say it's 13 years today. This looks like a massive event. We'll take out the sound because I don't speak German very well. But
Yeah.
look at you right at the front of the pack. It seems as grand as it should be. You know, people are competing for the competitive side, but also we want as many people to get involved in esports. This seemed like the beginning of it.
Yeah, 100%. Like this wasn't even an invite-only event. We had a lot of high society there to make them understand what is esports actually all about. The whole BMW F1 team was involved as well. This was also organized by ESL back in the day, so it was proper
There he
esports
is.
already. Yeah,
I don't know if you just saw
and
him, Sebastian Vettel. He looked
yeah,
like he was a teenager.
I guess no one even know him back then because it was still in his BMW junior times, I think.
Yeah, and I believe I've watched this enough now. There you are, rocking in behind in front of an F1 driver at the time.
Yeah. And the race itself was insane because when you see the clip going on, obviously this is me winning, insane feeling. But it's exactly this one that you see right now with Niels Naujoks, who's also still around in sim racing, actually working together with me. We have been teammates back in the past. And this was the final
Yeah.
lap with, I think, 2 corners or 3 corners to go. And he tried to overtake me with 3 corners to go. We touch each other, luckily without damage or anything, and I just saved it across the finish line, and then in the end won a BMW M6, which is insane.
Yeah, insane indeed. Is that one of the biggest? I mean, I suppose before I get to the quickfire question rounds, where well I'll really delve in. I hope you know that you're doing a quickfire question round.
Of
But
course.
just in terms of when did you realize enough was enough and it was time to move on to a more managerial role that we can see you in here?
Um, that was pretty easy because sim racing unfortunately had a slump connected to the financial crisis, so it became harder and harder to justify why I do this without the prize money included. That's also why I made the switch into the Need for Speed section. Need for Speed Shift wasn't that bad of a game, but it was also not really sim racing in the end, right? But it still had
Yeah.
tournaments around and it still had prize money involved. So this was the point where I said, okay, I have to go for this. I was actually pretty good on it at some point. I definitely think I was one of the best Need for Speed Shift players. Um, and that kind of took me into a fear of failure at some point. So I had a time where I put a lot of pressure on myself and never really enjoyed the game because I was more into sim racing rather than these arcade games. And that's a catastrophic formula if you're not having fun in the game, put pressure on yourself, and don't want to lose. So there was a moment in time where I understood, okay, I have to just call it a career after 5-6 years. Has been a good life, and I never even planned to go into the management role. Of course, that also just happened randomly. Like the picture that you're seeing there is from the Vegas E-Race, the famous $1 million tournament, where I was lucky enough to be invited by SK Gaming since I had the pass with them in order to be just there as a testimonial. I wasn't even involved anything in this competition. I was just there, but it was the moment in time. It was the moment in time where we all realized something is happening again to sim racing, and
Yeah.
that's where it took me to contact multiple teams in order to try to find maybe make my own team, and that's what happened, right? So I joined G2 Esports with our own sim racing team. That became Fernando Alonso Racing at some point. Of course, we had Rudy as our first driver in G2 who went on to win the World Fastest Gamer, for example, with the Fernando team, which is now the Red Bull Racing Esports team, basically, which is still run by G2. We had an insane run, and it keeps just getting better, to be honest. Like the guys winning the Forza World Championship last year, the F1 Esports Team Championship last year. I just hope that we get Freddy so far that he also wins the driver championship, but I wouldn't
There he is.
mind if Yoni even wins it. That's the competitive drive that I'm still living, right? I want to win. I want to win competitions, and I'm so proud to also have this team around me right now. The sim races that you see, it's just an amazing feeling. I've never planned to be in this position. I've also never planned to make my way up into esports operations. It just all happened naturally.
Hey, sometimes it's good not to make plans. It's good to see how things turn out. What I love from doing a bit of research, as I'm sure people watching this know this. What I love about you, Danny, is just the way you're nurturing that talent. You experienced it as a pro gamer, and then you're now able to help nurture it through the small teams that you kind of have, rather than the big roster that have been in the past. Is that important to you? How you nurture future talent like Yoni, like Chembo Libasi that you've had in the past?
Yeah, 100%. And I think seeing how we develop as a team, also through times where you go from G2 to Fernando Alonso to Red Bull Racing, I value the trust that also these drivers give me a lot. Like I couldn't be any prouder of how we work together on a daily basis, and we have been through stormy times as well. That's one of the most important things I also try to establish in G2 esports in general, like having a trust relationship with players and really mentoring them in their times as a pro player.